So today let's see about workflows and approval process. So these are all the functionalities which Salesforce has given in the first level itself, so that certain automated actions can happen without going for the second level. I mean coding. Okay. In the first level itself, you can do certain things. You can automate certain steps, for which Salesforce is famous for providing automation, and they have done using in the first level itself. One of them is workflows, and the other one is approval process. So, if you see workflows, the simple definition would be automated actions that happen based on the predefined conditions. So you will be defining certain conditions, and based on that, automatically system will trigger the actions. So what are the actions? If you see, you can automatically trigger an email. Automatically, you can send out an email from the system instead of a person drafting it and sending it. Based on the predefined conditions, automatically an email will be triggered. You can create a task. An outbound XML message can be sent from your Salesforce to some other system. The fourth one is you can do field update. These are all the four actions which you can do, which I have given it below. And there is a process which needs to be defined for the workflows. So these are all the actions. You can create a new task. You can send out an email alert. You can do field update, and you can send an outbound XML message. So new task. What is a new task? Task is a standard object in Salesforce. Like you have your lead account contact opportunity you have, right? The same way, this task is one standard object. So this will be available on your home page. I will be showing shortly. So you can create a task automatically based on the workflows. For example, no need to create a task and assign it to me. For example, let's assume like we are building the HR application, right? So when a new employee has joined or onboarded, the pre-joining formalities will be taken care by the HR, right? So once the employee has onboarded, post-joining formalities will be done, and the admin related activities like providing ID card, access card, those kind of stuff, admin related stuff, that would be done by the admin department, right? So once the pre-joining formalities and the post-joining formalities are done by the HR, automatically a task would be created for the admin department to take care of the admin related activities. So for them, automatically a task could be created in Salesforce using workflows. No need to create manually a person to sit and create one task and assign it to them automatically based on the condition. For example, these are all the fields. If a company, if the new employee has onboarded, if he is a new employee and if he has not joined the organization before, create a task on so and so date, and this has to be completed before this due date. Okay, you can give one predefined condition, and based on that, your new task will be created. So this activity could be automated in Salesforce using workflows. Okay. The next action, if you see email alert, automatically you can send out an email from Salesforce instead of a person sitting and drafting and then sending it automatically based on predefined conditions. For example, if the opportunity amount is greater than 1 lakh, automatically an email should be triggered to your supervisor, because if it is less than 1 lakh, you can take action. But if it is more than 1 lakh, you need your supervisor's approval. So that needs to be notified to your supervisor. In such a scenario, automatically an email alert could be triggered from your system based on the condition, like the opportunity amount if it is greater than 1 lakh, or if the opportunity stage if it has crossed certain stage like qualification stage, if it has crossed, it should trigger an email, or if an opportunity has lost, or if an opportunity has won. In such a scenario, automatically an email alert should be triggered. So that things, this action could be done automatically using workflows. So when you are saying an email could be triggered automatically, instead of a person sitting and drafting the email, you will have to, someone has to already draft that email, and you saved it in the system, and it will be available as a template format, and those templates can be used by all the employees across your organization. could be triggered. So what are all the ways by which you can create an email alert? If you see, there are 4 ways which I will be explaining: HTML, normal text email, or HTML email, or custom email, or Visual Force email. Using Visual Force also you can create an email template. Normal text email is something like what you draft and send it across, like right, subject, body, uh, whatever message which you are wishing to convey, you will type it and send it, right. So that would be already saved in the system as a template format. Email templates are there, so that I will be showing. Once I show that in practical, you will have a better understanding. So there are 4 ways by which you can create an email template, and those templates would be used when you are defining the action. So thing to be remembered here at this stage is like the second action which could be triggered using workflow is email alert. The third one is field update. Automatically a field could be updated based on the activity or update of the next any other section. For example, let's assume like on one particular object there are various sections, like 10 sections. For instance, if we assume on the account object we have 10 sections. If some change is happening on the first section field, the 10th or the 6th section field should get updated based on that field. Okay. For example, the account name should be modified automatically once if some change happens on the other field. So in such scenarios, you can automatically do such field updates, because most of the time this sales people or business people, they will be dealing with people and taking off the business activities. But in certain scenarios, you cannot do. They after that they'll have to take those details offline through somewhere in Notepad or thing, and then they'll have to again come and update in the system, or else there have to be one more specially dedicated person sitting in the system, CRM system, to do the updates. So instead of doing such field updates, this can be taken care by the system itself, and Salesforce using workflows we can do field updates. Field updates in the sense automatically some change happens on some other field. Based on that, so in some other section, some other field should be changed in this way only. For example, why I am repeating this is field update means people used to get confused. For example, it is not. For example, there is a field called text field. If a change happens on the text field, the same field cannot be updated or changed. Okay, if some activity or a change happens on one particular field, based on that, another field can be updated automatically. Okay, for example, if the opportunity amount is greater than 1 lakh, change the opportunity stage to critical or high, and that would be your pick list. A pick list field needs to be updated. So such kind of scenarios, those kind of field updates that could be done using workflows. This is one action. The fourth type of action is your outbound XML message. So if you want to send any message from Salesforce to some other system, for example from Salesforce to SAP or Salesforce to Oracle, the message format would be XML normally, right? From system to system, data should be transferring in this format, normally in XML, or now if it is going to be in REST format for URL-based applications, for mobile and URL-based applications, it would be in the JSON format. So XML format mobile, I think the tag, name, ID, address, in that way the message would be going. So if you wish to send any message from Salesforce to some other system, that would be in the format of XML, and you can send it across using outbound XML message. So that could be happening using your workflows. Using workflows, you can send an outbound XML message from Salesforce to some other system. So when you are doing this, you will have to define the endpoint URL, I mean to which system you are going to send the message. For example, if it is SAP, you will need to provide that SAP production instance or dev instance or that test instance server URL you will have to provide, because then only the system will know to which system the message needs to be sent. So for now, as we don't have the availability of another system or the in-between business layer like the middleware tool, we don't have. So this action alone could not be shown. We can create how to create an action and how to do this, but we don't have the ability to check, because we don't have access to server, SAP system, or you can even give Google. So HTTPS, if you give google.com the message, once the condition is satisfied, automatically the actions which you define under that workflow, it will get triggered. There is a way to check whether the action is working or not for these three. But for the fourth one alone, as we don't have another system, if we give it as HTTPS google.com, the message will be triggered. But then whether it has reached the system, either is there a way to possibility to check and go check and go there and check in the system, that is not possible. So that is why this alone is not possible to check. But we can see how to create it, as they have meant as a mandatory thing to define the endpoint URL. You will have to define to which system you are sending the message, and for that system you need to have access so that you can go and check. Okay. So also in real-time 90% scenarios, the fourth kind, this outbound XML message action would not be used using workflows. Maximum, most of the workflows, if you see, it would be the first three only. To be very honest, it would be the email alert or field update. These two alone will be only again and again we will be using, and rarely new tasks. This outbound XML message, it is a very rare scenario. Nobody will use it. Instead of this, we will go to our integration concept, like you have SOAP REST, right? So using SOAP without manual intervention, we will make the applications to interact with each other without manual intervention. So we'll opt for all enterprises will opt for that strategy, as we have that integration in place, integration class, and now recently Salesforce has brought a Lightning Connect, where in which you don't even need to write an integration class. So all that you need is to little configuration, where in which if the source system is able to expose their raw data as OData, which they mean organization data, OData. So if the source system is able to expose that, then you can in simple clicks you can actually integrate systems, and it is lightning fast, which I would have given an overview of about what is called as Lightning Connect. Now they have renamed it as Salesforce Connect. So using that you can do. So as we have multiple other options, using workflow sending in messages, like something which people or clients or customers don't prefer it. So in real time, if you see, this is a very rare scenario to put in short form, which is nobody uses it. So if you know how to create these actions, it is in real time it is very fine, more than enough. But there is no harm in knowing how to do this. But there is, for now, we don't have the option of checking it. Okay. So these are all the four actions which you can trigger automatically based on the conditions which you are going to define. Once the condition is defined, automatically these process will get triggered. So for defining the workflows, there is a process which I have explained it here. And before going into this, in workflows, there are two types of workflows. Immediate workflow, time-based workflow. Okay. Immediate workflow is soon after the condition is satisfied, the actions are triggered. So whatever conditions you specify, after the condition satisfies, automatically whatever the actions which you are defining, it will be triggered. In time-based workflow, you once the condition satisfies, after that you will specify a time, like 1 hour. 1 hour is the minimum. So 1 hour or 1 day, like whatever time you specify, that time also needs to be completed. After which the actions are triggered. Okay. So in immediate workflow, Whatever condition you give, once that is satisfied, all the actions which you specify under that action will be triggered. So that would be immediate workflow. Time-based workflow, the same, the condition needs to be satisfied. After that, you will specify a time, like after 1 hour, once the an employee has onboarded, like after one day, a task needs to be created for the admin department. Because like in the first day, all the rejoining, post-joining formalities will be taken care by the HR. So to give some space or breathing room for the employee and for the task department, and also to have a confirmation that the employee has really onboarded and he comes under the permanent payrolls of the organization. So we have specified a time frame, like once the employee has onboarded, and after 24 hours, after 1 day period, the next day, if he is a permanent employee, the next day a task needs to be created for the admin department. So this could be one example. So the time you are specifying, right? So he is a permanent employee, the condition is satisfying, and he has joined the organization, another condition that is also getting satisfied. So that after 1 day of time, a new task will be created for the admin department. So this will be time-based workflow. So the immediate workflow, soon after the employee onboards and does the things, immediately, the actions are triggered. Okay. So this is your immediate workflow and time-based workflow. Okay. So if you look at the workflow process, first the step would be to launch the workflow process wizard. So where to go and look for this workflow process wizard? If you see on the setup, click on setup. On the left side of your search, you will have the workflow process wizard. Okay. Next, if you see, you will have next you will have to select on which object you are going to trigger the workflow. This would be your second step. Always your workflows in the whole process work on particular object only. That's why when if you remember, when we are creating the objects, it could have asked one step: do you want to perform uh, automated actions in future? Like that, one checkbox will be enabled. If you click that checkbox only, on that particular object, workflows and approval process will be triggered. Okay, so both your workflows and approval process, before starting it, you will have to specify on which object you are going to do the workflow. Okay. Next, you will have to give a name for your workflow, and that could be a custom name, whatever you wish. And or if it is in real times, they would be based on the naming convention and all. They would be following, and they would be giving everything. So give a label for your workflow. Next is your evaluation criteria. So on which basis you want the action to be triggered? Like every time when you create a record on that object, correct? That we assume like employee object is there, and every time you create a record on that employee object, so every time the or the actions which you specify, whether that needs to be triggered. So that would be your first criteria. So every time when someone creates one object on that particular object, the actions which you specify will be triggering continuously. Next is created or edited. Okay. So every time when someone has created the record, and every time if someone is editing, because like a record called Ganesh could be created on the employee object once. After that, it could be edited a number of times, right? So every time when someone is editing that particular record, do you want the system to trigger the actions? So that would be your second evaluation. And one restriction or limitation is your time-based workflows I told, right? So that will not work on this second evaluation criteria. For time-based workflows, only first and third will work, and for immediate workflows, all three will work. So this is not a restriction in DevOps, this is a restriction across all orgs, even in your enterprise or unlimited edition, across all orgs. If you see, you will have the same condition. Okay. So time-based workflows will not work on your second evaluation criteria, like the create every time if you are creating and editing the record, your time-based workflows will not work. The third one, if you see, you have created one record and someone has edited it, and after that, if it meets the criteria, you will be defining one condition, right? So if that matches this condition, after which only you need the actions to be triggered. So So whether do you want this? These three would be the evaluating criteria for any workflow. First, you have to specify on which object you are going to trigger. Give a name for your workflow. The third one is evaluation criteria. In most of the scenarios, it would be created, or 90% it would be the third scenario, because you will be defining one condition, and based on the condition only, once that is satisfied, your actions need to be triggered. So that would be the most of the cases, that would be the scenario. So if you select the third one, the fourth next step would be to define the criteria or the conditions. Last session, when we have seen the sharing criteria based sharing rules, I would have said, right, like you can give simple conditions, which we will be seeing in workflows, I would have said, right. So last time we have shared the records using based on the owner role, or based on the owner record owner would have shared. So there was one more option, like based on conditions. So that what condition, if you see, like if the particular, if the field value something is equal to this, then you share the records. So that would be the case. Here the same. So what is that, if you see, if the opportunity stage is 1 lakh, if the opportunity date is getting closed by the next 45 days, if the opportunity amount is this much, then these things needs to be processed. So if the employee, if he is taking leave for more than 4 days, then that needs to be notified to his immediate supervisor. So that employee, in that employee object, there would be a field called number of days. If it is greater than 4, then automatically trigger an email or create a task or send out and do a field update. So those kind of actions you can do it based on the conditions. So whatever the conditions that you are specifying, that would be your rule criteria, which you would be defining it here. Okay. Next, after you define the rule conditions, then the fourth action step would be your workflow action. So this would be the things. These are all the actions which I told earlier. You can do it using workflows. So on one workflow, you can do all four, or you can have only one action in one workflow. That depends on the business requirement, actually. So if they say they want on one particular, if they're giving one condition on for that, if they expect to automatically an email to be triggered and an appeal to be updated, you can do both the actions in one workflow itself. If there are multiple conditions which could not be fit in one workflow, then you will have to go for another new workflow. Okay. So this depends on your business requirement. And finally, do not forget to activate your workflow. If at all, if you are forgetting, then none of the actions will get triggered and nothing will work. Most of the scenarios for the initially users will or Salesforce people, they'll create everything and finally they'll forget to activate it, so that and after they'll try to create a record on the object and they'll say workflow is not working, workflow is not working. If you go and see, they would have not activated the workflow. Okay. The final step would be to activate the workflow. So this is what a little overview about what workflow is. Fine. So next, if you see, so we will be seeing in practical about how to achieve this workflows, where to go and find, and I'll be showing first to check, create immediate workflow and to check whether it is working or not. Then the same way, only time-based workflow, the only difference would be you will be specifying the time. Other than that, the remaining steps and all will remain the same. So I will also create one time-based workflow and specify a time. But if the minimum is actually 1 hour, so or 30 minutes, I think. So we'll have to wait till the time whether it is triggering or not. But in immediate workflow itself, we'll be checking. So it should not be a problem. So I'll show how to create time-based workflow. After which you could also create and check whether it is triggering or not. Definitely after the specified time, the system will be triggering whatever actions which you are defining for the particular workflow. And one more thing to be remembered is once you are creating this workflow and activating it, right? After once you activate the workflow, after this, if you want to make any changes, for example, let's assume like you have created one workflow and it has went live, the users are using it. Then again, after all of a sudden, there is a change request from the customer where in which they are asking to change one particular workflow or edit one particular workflow, which is already live in the system. So if an already activated workflow needs to be edited, and if it is a time-based workflow, then you will first need to deactivate the workflow. First you will have to deactivate the workflow. Fine. Then only you can make the changes. The system will allow you to make the changes for the particular workflow once you deactivate it. And then you make the changes, and again if you activate it, then all the actions will be coming into life. Okay. So this is one thing which needs to be remembered for workflows, and this will be the overview. We will be seeing in practical for workflows how to create it, where to go, and how to define the actions. And for email alert, how to create the email templates, all will be seeing it. Okay. So now if you see, for instance, we are going to look at we have employee object, right? So on that particular object, we have certain fields. Like for field update, you need to have one field, right? So that and all I have created and kept on the employee object. So for example purpose, we are going to take the employee. There is an object called employee leave, which we are going to take that, and in that I have already created few fields. Okay. So for doing field update, for creation of task, because you will have to specify the conditions, right? So what is the condition that you are going to give? So for both workflows and approval process, we are going to take that employee object. So this would be an overview about your workflows. So in the example, if you see for field update, see here, if you enter the price of the product in the product object, if it is more than 1000, calculate 20% discount and give the discounted value. So this would be one field update. Okay. If some change happens on one field, then the total what is the total amount? If it is more than 1000, then calculate 30% discount and put it as 800. Okay, this is a simple example for your workflow actually. I mean for field update in workflow. So next, if you see approval process. So approval process, if you take like to be very open, it is an extension of your workflow. People when they are looking at workflows approval process for the first time, they would say it looks more or less like an workflow only. So why Salesforce has kept it like workflows and approval process? Why do not they have kept it as one thing? If you see the way there is a difference, a small difference between a workflows and approval process, and in real time, the way the requirements wherein which the workflow fits in is different, and the requirement where you will put approval process is totally different. So that's why there is a two things Salesforce has kept like workflows and approval process. So approval process is automated actions that happen once the record is sent for approval. Okay. Inside Salesforce, whatever record that is being sent for approval, once you send a record for approval, what are the automated actions that happen after that? Okay, that you will be specifying in the workflow. In approval process, in workflows, what you are doing, you will specify a condition. If the condition satisfies, automatically you would have defined few actions. That actions will be triggering if it is an immediate workflow. If it is time based on the time, automatically the actions which you have specified in the workflow, it will get triggered. That would be your workflow. But in approval process, the end user, after defining the approval process, the end user needs to know the process. For example, if he takes leave less than for less than or equal to 2 days, then no problem. If he is going to take leave for more than 2 days, then he has to get his supervisor's approval. Okay, so let's assume that this is the process followed in your organization. Then the if now the condition needs to be satisfied. What is the condition? The employee needs to take more than 2 days of leave. Once he takes that, he has to click on the, if he takes more than 2 days, let's assume if he is opting for 4 days of leave, then the condition satisfies, right? It is more than 2 days. Then after that, the end user needs to click on the submit. There will be a button called submit for approval. Once you create the approval process in any particular object, a new button will get enabled called submit for approval. And that will work only based once it satisfies the condition. The button will be enabled by default once you have created the approval process. but that button will work only if that particular record satisfies the condition. Here also you will be defining one condition, which we call it as our entry process criteria or entry process condition, which you will be defining in the approval process. So that would be like, as I said, if the number of days is greater than 2, then the record needs to be sent for approval. Okay. After the condition satisfies, the end user has to click on the submit for approval button. Okay. After which the record goes for approval. So after the record has been submitted for approval, what are the actions that will be happening in the background, automated actions, that is taken care in the approval process. Here also you will be defining the actions, the same workflow actions like sending a task, email alert, field update, outbound external message, the same actions only you will be defining it here. But it is in a different way. Okay. Why? Because like once you submit a record for approval, how will your supervisor come to know you have applied for 4 days of leave? He would be busy in his activities. It is not his duty to always sit inside Salesforce and looking for whether you are applying for 4 days of leave or more than 2 days of leave. That is not his only job, right? So whenever some user is doing that, some notification needs to be sent. So that would be the case of email alert, right? So those 4 workflow actions only we will be defining it here. So once the record has been submitted for approval, an email could be triggered for notifying the supervisor, and you can keep a field where in which the status changes. So actually in which state it is, whether it is approved or rejected, or whether it is waiting for the approval. So all such status could be maintained in one field, where in which you could define the field update, and automatically you could create a task like as we are doing it for the workflow. The same way only here we would be doing, but the instance or the business requirement or the way in which practically this approval process works is totally different. Okay. Also, after the record has been submitted for approval, what are all the actions that happen in the background? So that is being explained by your approval process. So using this, what could be done? A very good real-time example could be your once you are exiting one organization, there would be an exit clearance, right? So you will have to go and get the clearance from all departments like IT, finance, legal, admin, travel, help desk, from everybody. If at all if there are any news from you know any concern from department, you will have to do this, and then finally only they will be doing. So usually, normally people will be doing that by taking a sheet of their hand, and they will be in person. They will be going to all departments. So instead of that, that process could be automated or made it digital using this approval process in Salesforce. So you can create a group for each department, for HR department, for admin department, for legal department, every department. So once one department approves it, it goes for the another next department. Once that is approved, it goes to next department, it goes to next department. So finally, all you can get the final clearance from all departments inside this approval process itself. So such kind of actions could be automated in approval process. And one more thing to be notified is whether you are applying for whether you are an user in for approval process, or whether you are approving or rejecting the record. In both the scenarios, you will have to log into Salesforce. Then only you should do. For example, if you are applying for 4 days of leave, means you will have to log into the system, apply for 4 days of leave, and click on submit for approval button, and the notification will be sent to your supervisor. If he wants to approve or reject your leave, then your supervisor needs to be logged into the system, and then only he can, after getting logged into the system, go to the application, go to the particular leave record which you have applied, then only he can approve or reject. Okay, from any mobile handheld device, or if he is sending an email like approved, the system does not have the maturity to capture that word like approved and then make the record approved. There are certain app exchange products which are available in the market, but then that is also not up to the mark. There are so many issues in that, because for one of my clients, which they were using an app exchange third-party product for to handle this. If supervisor sends approved, automatically the record would be approved. So, but then it is not taking in most of the scenarios. That is not happening in most of the scenarios, because it would be exactly the word should be approved. But if they use by mistake, or if it is a little different word, small case, uppercase, if there is any special characters, or if there is any space, then the system is not able to track it completely. So there are so many hindrances for doing that. So always it is recommended from Salesforce, by Salesforce itself, it is recommended, like if you are doing a full process, you have to log into the Salesforce, then only you have to take care of it. things. Okay, so this would be your what a little overview of about approval process and difference between workflows and approval process. In which scenarios our workflows fits in and which scenarios approval process fits in. As in your what to say like workflows, in approval process also there is a steps which needs to be followed. Okay, so what are those steps? If you see the same way like as you did for workflows, on the on your Salesforce page, click on setup. On the left side, click on approval process. That will take you to your approval process wizard page. Next, you will have to select on which object you are going to trigger the approval process. Then there are two types of approval process: jumpstart and standard wizard approval process. So jumpstart we call it as basic approval, and for standard wizard we call it as a complex approval process. So in real time, if you see 90%, 95% of scenarios, the approval process it will get fits in jumpstart itself. Okay, in jumpstart technically, if you see the difference, the technical difference would be like in jumpstart you will be defining the complete approval process in one step itself. Okay, but in standard wizard approval process you will have to do the same approval process but in 7 steps actually. Okay, so here another difference would be in jumpstart, Salesforce itself will do certain actions for us so that it would be easier for us to define the approval process. So that would be jumpstart. But in standard wizard, everything needs to be taken care by the consultant who is defining the approval process. He should only define. So that would be your one difference. Okay. What we say is if your organization hierarchy is simple or basic, like simple hierarchies you have, like 10 managers, senior manager and director, VP, CEO. So if your organization hierarchy is simple and basic, then you can go for jumpstart. If your organizational hierarchy is a little complex, then you will have to go in for your standard wizard approval process. That's what Salesforce says. But what we see is like in both of the cases, you could maximum fit in Jumpstart itself. So if at all in future, if you want to make, for example, you have made me as an approver. In future, if you want to make any other user as an approver, before activating, like in workflows, you have to activate the approval process also. So before activating it, you should make sure whom you want to make your as your approver. So after once you have also activated, there is no way both in Jumpstart and Standard Wizard to include new approvers or rejectors. Okay, all these things will be clearly mentioned in the BRT itself. So starting from naming convention to the conditions and to use whether Jumpstart or the Standard Wizard approval process, everything will be defined very neatly. So as far as I have seen in most of the cases or scenarios, 90% uh, your approval process will start with Jumpstart only. We will try to fit in and the requirement will fit in the Jumpstart itself. The only difference between which we see is like if this in one step, in single step itself, you can define the Jumpstart. It would be 7 steps you will have to define for standard design. After which, if you look at as we have seen, there is a page called object detail page. Right after you create a new object, it will take you to the backend object page. It will take right. The same way after defining the workflows and approval process, it will take you to your workflow detail page or approval process detail page. So once you created, after creating the jumpstart and the standard wizard approval process, if you go and look at the approval process detail pages and all, if you go and look at it, then if you see like it would be the same like what we have seen. There will be no difference. So the only difference is like the way you define. If this is actually a single step, this is actually many steps. Okay. After this, you will have to specify the entry criteria which the approval process should satisfy for the actions to get triggered. So as an workflow, you will have to define the conditions here also. I said right, whether the number of days is greater than 2, then you will have to specify when only the approval process needs to get triggered. So those kind of conditions and all, you will be defining it here. And finally, you will be activating the approval process. Do not forget to activate it. Then only things will get done. So once you have specified the criteria, after that there are few more actions that needs to be specified, which is not being done in your uh, workflows. You see here there are 5 actions: initial submission action, then you will be defining the approval steps. Whom and all you have given as approver. You can give single approver or multiple approver, serial approving, parallel approving, anything could be done. Next, once you are approved, once your leave is approved, then what actions need to be specified. If it is rejected from your supervisor, then what are all the actions that needs to be specified. Before your manager approves or rejects, if the user wishes to recall and edit and make some changes and resubmit it again, then what are all the actions which needs to be submitted. So all this will be triggered. So after this, here only you will be defining if it is a task or email or field update or XML message, that workflow actions we said, right? So those things and all you will be defining here only. So why this is, if you see initial submission actions. So soon after you submit a record for an approval, what are all the actions that needs to be done? So this will change based on from process to process. This will change from requirement to requirement. This changes, and it has to put in simple words. This changes based on the business requirement. Okay. So soon after a record is being submitted for approval, what needs to be done? So whether you want to send an email or field update, or whether you want to create a task. So once a record has been submitted for approval, by default Salesforce locks that record. So nobody else will have the option other than system admins and the record owner who has applied for leave. Other than that, no other will have option to actually edit the particular record once the record has been submitted for approval. Why? Because once the record has been submitted for approval, think of you have submitted for applying for 4 days of leave. What if you have shared your credentials way back with me, and now we have a tiff between us, and I am trying to log in as you, and I'm trying to change the record values whatever you have submitted for approval. So it is yet to be approved or rejected from your supervisor. But before that, if I try to make any changes, if I'm making the changes from 4 days to 40 days, and I'm making the system and I'm submitting it, then the system will show as if like you have applied only. So to avoid such scenarios, once a record has been sent for approval, automatically the record will be locked from Salesforce side. After it is approved or rejected, then only the record will be unlocked. Okay, this is a standard action which Salesforce is doing, and there is no way to override it. So the initial submission action, the first action is locking the record, which will be done by default from the Salesforce side itself. After that, whether do you want any custom actions. Apart from that, whether if you want, based on the business requirement, if you want any custom actions, your supervisor needs to be notified, right? Once you submit the record, once you submit your leave record, then it needs to be, your supervisor needs to be notified. So that would be your initial submission action. Okay. Apart from locking the record, which is a standard action which Salesforce does, based on the business requirement, you can define custom actions, and that this is same like how you define in your workflow, the same way only. Okay. Next would be your approval steps. As I said, you will be defining the approvers, whether if it is, that could be a single approver or multiple approvers. Then there will be parallel level of approving, serial level of approving. So parallel level of approving, if you see, if there are 4 users, 4 approvers, anyone in that 4, if they are going to approve or reject, then your leave is approved or rejected. So anyone in that 4 can do that. So this is parallel level of approving. Serial level of approving, if you see, all 4 needs to be, has to approve or reject. Then only your leave will be approved. If there are 4 approvers you have defined, all 4 needs to look into that, and all 4 needs to approve or reject. Then only the system will take your approval process will get completed. Now you can have one question. So what if in those 4 people, what if 2 people are approving and 2 people are rejecting? How the system will take? Whether it will take the median or average, or what, we can have the question, right? So in such a scenario, if one person is rejecting, your whole record, your leave will be rejected. Okay. All 4 needs to be approved. If all 4 is approving, then only your record is approved. If anyone is rejecting the record, then the whole record will get rejected only. Okay. So this is how the system takes. So these kind of approval steps and all you will be defining in the second step. Next is final approval action. This is what you see once your record has been approved from your manager. Now what are the actions? Because if your leave is approved by your manager, how will you come to know? an action needs to be triggered. You need to know, and if an email is triggering only, you will come to know like your leave has been approved, right? So for that such scenarios, like if you want, so those custom actions and all you will be defining. Once your leave or record is approved, then custom actions which you will be defining, that will be explained in your here in your final approval action. Next, if you say final rejection action, if your leave is rejected, then what are the actions which needs to be specified? So that you can define it here. The fifth one is like before your supervisor approves or rejects it, if you want to recall back your already applied leave record and make some changes. You have applied for 4 days of leave, but it is pending for your approval from the supervisor. Before that, you are changing your mind and you are like you want to make it like 5 days. So before your manager approves or rejects, you can actually recall it and then edit the record and make it as file, and then after that you can again resubmit it again so that it will be available for your supervisor to approve or reject. So that in such a scenario, so what are the actions that needs to be specified? So that would be defining it here in the recall workflow actions. Okay. So these are all the approval process action steps. Once you are when you are creating approval process, this steps will be there. Apart, this is like different from the workflows. So these steps, and after this, before activating it, once you specify the criteria of the approval process action steps needs to be done. Inside approval process actions, you have these 5 steps, and inside each step, you have these many actions, custom actions based on the business requirement it can have. Okay, so this is actually an overview of about your what approval process is. So these are all the two features which Salesforce has given the first level, based on which you can automate certain actions, and based on the business requirement, you could choose whether to go for workflows or approval process. Okay. So next, if you see, let's see in practical of about how to achieve this. So if you see here, let's take, as I said, I have an object called employee leave. Where you see here, I have created fields like the number of days, status, and if you look at status is actually a pick list field. So for our example, I am going to, for both workflows and approval process, I am going to take this object. I have around 120, 142 records in this, and I have considerable amount of fields here, first name, last name. For status, I have see here, it is a pick list field where I have the values like this. So for approval process, whether it is approved or rejected, or it is pending for approval, whether it is not submitted, or if you are recalling it. So for workflow, if it is, I'm going to use for both workflows and approval process. For status field update, I'm going to use this field. Okay, and this is the condition field. Number of days I have one field called, it is a number field. So I'm going to use this. Also, you can have, there is one more pick list for the permanent, whether he is a permanent employee or contract employee, to have that detail and handle. So what is the years of experience which they have. So whenever someone creates a record or creates and edits a record, or because in workflow we have evaluation criteria, right? So we have to specify on which object we are going to specify the workflow of an approval process. So it is actually this object. Okay, I have uh, these fields. So hope you are now very clear, like what is an object, how to create object fields and all, right. So I have created all this. So for our example purpose, we are going to take this object. Okay. Next, if you see, we will have to define the workflows, right? So workflows, what is this? process. First, let's see about workflows. Go to setup. On your search, click on workflows. So workflow under build create, you'll have workflow rules. Click on that. It will take you to this object. This is actually a workflow process wizard page. Okay. So now here click on new rule. Now here you will have to select on which I told right what is, you have to specify the object where you need to the workflow needs to be done. So in that case select specify the object. For our scenario it is employee leave. Specify the object name. Next it will take you to the step when which you will have to specify the name for your workflow. So I'm specifying a name for your my workflow, as I have already created a considerable amount of workflows for different sessions. For identification purpose, I'm using your name. So this naming convention and the names and all in real time, you will have everything very clearly specified. This naming convention and all will be varying from project to project and business requirement. So in the PDF which I have shared also, there will be they would have also followed the naming convention things and all they would have also followed. So when you are practicing, you can have a look on that, which will be very good and helpful. Okay. So and all these are very minor steps. Nobody, whether it is an administrator, developer, or consultant, they all will be doing this. Like whatever they have done, they will copy and they will do it because it is not. There is no point in analyzing why they have given such a name and why the business is asking for such a condition. Those kind of analysis, it is not required from a developer perspective or a consultant perspective. The business has asked, and it is the vendor provider, I mean the service provider's job to take care of the request. That's all. So now after you define a name for the workflow, after this step is actually your evaluation criteria. So this is where I specified. So every time whether when you are creating a record on this particular object, you create a record. When someone creates a record on this object, you want the condition to be specified. Or see here, if you select every time when someone is creating and every time the record is getting edited, at that time whether you want the actions to be triggered. So here once you click this, automatically one option gets enabled, one pop-up like which alerts like for time dependent workflow actions you cannot add this condition. I told right. So this is what I said. So for time dependent workflows, this is not going to work. So what we are seeing now is immediate workflow. First we will see immediate workflow so that we can check whether the workflow is working or not. Okay. So this is one limitation or restriction which Salesforce has given across all orgs. The third condition is created and every time it is edited and it meets the criteria. So any workflow if you see, you will have to specify. See here, the first conditional criteria is actually they have made as a mandatory. So you will have to specify a criteria which based on which this condition only, whatever actions you specify that will get triggered. So here if you see when you can have the criteria can be met or you can also have a formula. Okay, already I would have said like formula field validation rules and all I am going to explain right. The same way, whatever your Excel sheet formulas, the same only will be repeating here and will or not. So using a formula also you can specify it here and based on the formula your workflows will get triggered. Instead of a condition you are going to specify a formula, that's all. Okay. And this also depends on business requirement. As we are yet to see a formula field validation rules, once I explain that this could be done. But once I explain that it would be the same similar way you can define it here. So for now let's see criteria. We will be defining one criteria and once the criteria is getting satisfied, the workflows will get triggered. That would be our scenario. Let's assume that. Okay. So for our purpose, this once you click on this, all the fields in your particular object will get displayed. So what is our condition? If number of days is greater than 2, okay, I want my workflow to be triggered. Also, you can also have one more condition. What is that? The employee should be a permanent employee. So type equals permanent. There are two conditions which I am giving it here. Like this, you can give multiple conditions. Okay, in real time, based on the business requirement, this condition could be varying. So I can give any number of conditions. Okay. So what I'm saying is, if he is a permanent employee and he is if he is applying, if he is taking the number of days field is greater than 2, my workflow needs to be activated. Okay, that is my condition which I am saying it here. See here, and so and means, hope you know, both the conditions need to be satisfied, correct? If it is or either one, if anyone is getting satisfied, fine. And means both conditions needs to be satisfied. So okay, like for our scenario, we have taken it like both the conditions. He should be a permanent employee, and also he should opt for 2 days of leave. Then only the workflow needs to be triggered. So fine, no problem. But what if like the business is saying like whether one condition, if at all, whether he is a permanent employee, or if he is taking for more than 2 days of leave, or if there is another scenario wherein which they are, the request is like there are three conditions and it should be an R. And if anyone is getting satisfied, the workflow needs to be activated. If the requirement is like that, then how can you fit in? Because the system is showing only and. So how can I fit in that R request? So for that, Salesforce in the releases they have added this thing. So if you click on add filter logic, that and will go off. Okay. So now you will have an option here. One text box will get enabled, where in which you can define the conditions. So instead of and, I can give R. Okay, so you can also give not if whatever conditions you wish, you can give it. So you can also give a combination of and not. See here, they themselves have given example. If the amount is greater than 1 lakh, if the close date is next to 45 days, and if the role is starting with VP, then the condition is like first and two needs to be satisfied. Both 1 lakh and next to 45 days. It should be 1 and 2, or 3. These both along with that the third condition. So like this, based on the business requirement, you can have things to change. Okay, so for now, let's take like to have, as we are doing it for the first time, let's have it like the way which Salesforce has given. And so for our example, both conditions, he should be a permanent employee, and if he is taking more than 2 days of leave, then our workflow needs to be activated. Let's put it this way. Next, click on save and next. So here only you will have to specify your workflow actions. See here, immediate workflow action, time dependent workflow action. If you click on here, it will show whether it is a task, email alert, or field update, or outbound message, I told right. So this is where you will specify all your actions for your workflow. So see here, this is the condition. If the number of days is greater than 2 and employee leave type equals permanent, then the actions which you are going to specify now should be triggered. Okay. So how to define the actions? Let's see. First, let's see about immediate workflow, and after that, let's see time-dependent workflow actions. Okay. Now, if you see add workflow actions, under that, let me first show you field update. New field update. You have to give name for your field update. So what is the field that you are going to update? I am going to update my status field. That is actually a pick list field. So what is the value that needs to be updated? If you see, I am going to make it as workflow activated. So soon after my condition satisfies, automatically this field should change to workflow activated. So click on save. So this is how you create or define a field update action for any workflows. Okay. Next, if you see task. So once you click on new task, it will take you to this step. So here you will have to, you can assign it to some people. So as we have only 2 users, you can assign it to user or role or owner. Okay. Now as we have only 2 users, I am assigning to myself so that I can show you, because in real time it would be for a different person, different team. But as here, like I am the person who is creating the workflows and I am the one who will be checking it. I am assigning it to myself so that I can show you. Okay. So status and in progress, priority high. So subject due date the rule then it needs to be completed, gets completed before 1 day. Okay. So this protected component is one checkbox which was enabled from Salesforce recently. So you can either enable it or disable it, no harm. So if you enable it, if you are making it as a package, I said right, if you are making it, you can make managed packages, unmanaged packages, you can put all your components in one package to distribute it in the app exchange environment or across orgs if you want to distribute your application, you will be adding it everything, right? So in that scenario, if you enable it, all the dependencies which they call. So if you have any dependencies for this workflow, if you have any dependencies or any other object or record or class, whatever you write, if it has your workflow as dependency, once you enable this, this will get protected in your when you're. This is like a security feature. It would be if you have dependencies and when you're distributing your package, this once if it is enabled, like it will not be revealed to the external environment. For the managed packages, the code will not be revealed, right? Same way for if you have any dependencies, if you enable this protected component, then the specifications which you specify inside this will not get revealed to the outer environment. So that is what they are specifying. Okay. So click on save. Okay. Like this, we are creating the task. So where to go and check for the task, I will show you. So this is how you define a task in a workflow action. How to create a new task under workflow actions, we have seen it. So we have created two actions, task and field update. Next is your email alert. For email alert, as I said, you need to have an email template. So there are four ways by which you can create a template. So on your left, click on templates. So under administer, you will have email templates. Click on that, it will take you to this page. Okay, by default, you will have templates from this marketing. If you check in your system, in your debug also, you will have some dummy email templates which Salesforce itself would have given. Now let's create one new template. As I said, there are four ways by which you can create a template: text, HTML, custom visual course. So text is your normal, how you create and send an email, that would be a text email. HTML is like if you want to have the HTML tags, right? Bold, paragraph, italic, those HTML tags and all, if you want to use it in your email, then you can go for HTML. Custom is without using letterhead. Certain companies, they'd be having header, footer, they want their logo, letterhead, logo and all they wish to have, right? So like letterhead format, if they want, you can have it in HTML. If they don't want using letterhead, that logo, header, footer and all, if they don't wish to have, you can have it in a custom. Using visual course also, you can create image templates because it is a template only, right? It is actually HTML only. So combination of your HTML and CSS which Salesforce has given it as a template format. Visual course is actually for your UI only, correct? So front end UI is actually being taken care in Visual Course. So if once, as we are not aware of, as we have yet to start with Visual Course, HTML, those things and all, well, for now, let's do with text, and then once we have completed this visual course, you can do it. So if you see what is the need, if you see, if it is a simple email like a subject body wherein which it is going to contain few sentences, you can do it in text. What if if the customer is asking with the header, footer, their logo, like that one email needs to be sent to the customer, or in one email if they are asking for a table like structure, like if the customer is placing order for some 1,000 products, if they are placing an order, then they want one email to be triggered wherein which all the 1,000 products need to be shown in one table format. If you like, okay, then you will have to go for in Visual Course, if you see page log table, in HTML you will have to go for table, tr, td, those tags and all you will have to use, right? So for such kind of emails, you will have to go and create these things. Okay, so for now, let's create one text email template. Click on next. So I'll explain this a few minutes later. Before that, come to the second step. So always you'll have to keep your email templates and unfiled public email templates only, so that it will be visible to everyone and it can be used by anyone. If you keep it in my personal email templates, only you can use it. Okay. So it is always recommended to keep your email templates and unfiled public email templates. Always click on available for use. Then only when people, if they are searching, it will be displaying it here. See here, it is showing, right? So if you want your email template to be shown like that, you will have to enable this one. Then give one name for your email template. So I'm giving with your name, so that it will be easier for me to identify and it will be unique. So subject, okay. Like as how you draft one email, I'm just typing subject, my email content, wherein which I have defined the names and the sentences frame here. If you look at here, see here, hi Ganesh. So every time the value, this is what we call it as hard coding. Okay, the name, IDs or numbers, whatever we call it. If I give it as Ganesh, if I'm every time if I'm using this template in my workflow, for whatever record, for whatever employee I create, like for Arun, Chindu, for Dilanta, if I'm going to create any record, any employee record, the email would be going it as Ganesh, right? So if I'm creating it as Dilanta, the email should trigger to Dilanta in the name of Dilanta, not as Ganesh, correct? So that makes sense actually. So instead of this hard coding, is there not a way to dynamically get the values at the runtime? The HR, he is giving whatever name he is giving it here. If at all, if there is a way to capture that name at runtime and include that here in the template, and the system is going to trigger the email in that name, that would be cool, right? So for that only, Salesforce has given this option, this merge field options in the top. So here, if you select the first, you will have to select the object, correct? Employee leave fields. Okay. After that, you will have to specify the field name. So what is the field name? If you see, this is actually label name. So what is the API name? If you see, it is actually name. Okay. So this is the API name. So if you specify that name, for example, you will have to search for employee name. Okay, they have given it as like label name itself. So once you select these object and field, automatically see here it will show one text. So all that you have to do is copy that and include in the Ganesh. Instead of Ganesh, give it as this. So object name dot field name. So open braces, close braces, exclamatory mark, object name dot field name. So you don't worry about this GSM Salesforce Lightning. For Lightning purpose, as I have told earlier, like you need to have a namespace. So what is a namespace? It is a unique thing to differentiate between your org and other orgs. So if you are registering in your name, for example, Zeta Technologies is the company wherein which you are doing all the development activities, then you need to have a namespace under your name, company name, so that whatever Lightning components you create, that would be differentiated from other people's work. So to have that, Salesforce has introduced this feature of namespacing, and once you have Once you create one namespace for your org, automatically in all the objects and fields, this will get appended. Okay, this name will get automatically appended for all the object and field names. So that's why it is showing here. So we don't worry about that. When you are trying it, you would not have created this. So it will be your object name dot field name. So always in Salesforce, if you want to refer to the fields inside one particular object, it is like object name dot field name, as we will be defining like a class name, method name. Inside one method, sorry, inside one class, if there is a method, what is the way to actually access that class? Method. So class name dot method name. If at all, if it is a static class. If it is any other class other than static, we will be creating one instance for that class, and using that instance, we will be accessing the methods inside that class, right? So this is actually pretty a basic thing for your object when you're going for developmental or roots concept. This is basic. The same way, in the first level, at the metadata level, data modeling level, if you want to access any fields in Salesforce, it is actually object name dot field name. Okay. So if once this is actually we call it as a merge field, open braces, close braces, exclamatory part, object name. But once you specify this, this will do the job of taking the runtime field, whatever it is being by the end user, whatever name he specifies here, system will take that name and the email will be triggered. Okay. So this is our basic text email template which we have created. Click on save. So this is how our email template looks like. Okay, now we are going to make use of this email template in our workflow action. So let's come back to here. So we'll have to refresh it once because we have created the email template now only, right? So again, click on email alert. Give one name for your email alert. So the earlier name uh, which we gave is for like the email template. Email template is different. Email alert is different. So now give a name for your email. So now if you see, now here select your email template. Okay, Delanta email template. This is the email template which we have done, right? So click on that. So next, for which user, whether you want to send to user or any owner or a group or a public group, everything we can do it. So now here, like let me select user, so that, and in that user let me select myself. Then only I can show you whether I am receiving the email or not. Okay. So Ganesh, yes. So whatever email which I have given in my user profile, for yourself it would be like when you are signing up for the login page, you would have defined one email, right? So there, whatever email which you have defined it there, that email the system will be taking it. Fine. So here if you see, now I am selecting myself so that I can show you, but in real time it would be different. Like the approval process will be created by one person, it will be getting triggered to another person, and the person who is using the approval process, he will be different. But now there is for us to show it in practical, I am only creating the approval process, I am only going to use the approval process, I am only going to trigger the approval process, and finally all the actions which are going to happen, that is also going to get routed to me. So for that only I am choosing my name. Okay. Apart from that, if you can, if there are, if you have any other users who are not in Salesforce, additionally you can have 5 email address. You can mention it here so that the system will send. For example, if I am not a Salesforce user, you can even send an email alert to my personal email ID also. I can send. Okay. So using this option. So click on save. So now we have defined the third workflow action also, which is the email alert action. Okay. So the fourth action, if you see outbound message, this is what I said. You will have to define one name for your thing. So see here, it is requesting for session ID, endpoint, URL, and all it is asking, right? So this is what I was specifying. Your production, like if you wish to send the data to SAP system or Oracle system, you will have to specify the production server URL of the SAP or your Oracle system. You will have to specify it here. Okay. Then only the records will get triggered. So as we don't have any other system, you can even give HTTPS google.com you can give. Okay. So even if you give this, you can save. But then the once the condition is satisfying, like your email, task, and your field update, this will also get enabled. So, but there is no option of like to go and check whether the message has been sent or not. Okay. So that's why I said it is not possible to check for the outbound messages alone, but you can create it. Okay. Also in real time, like using workflows, there's people will not prefer to send one outbound message from the system. Instead of that, they'll go for that integration capabilities. Okay. So this is how you will create workflow action. So finally click on done. So it will take you to this page. This is called as workflow detail page. It will specify the rule name, in which object you are having it, what is the evaluation criteria, what is the rule criteria, and what are all the actions, whether it is immediate action or time dependent action. So all after defining the process of workflow, you can have it a full overview you can have it here. So which we call it as a workflow detail page. So we have done everything. Finally, what should we do? We have to activate the workflow. Okay. See here, once activated, you cannot add time-dependent workflow actions. I told right. So now we have created the workflow and activated it. So after this, if you wish to make any changes for this time-dependent workflow, then you will have to deactivate it and then only you can make it. Okay. If you want to have any changes for immediate workflow, no problem, you can have it. But if you wish to have any changes for time-dependent workflow, then you will have to deactivate it. Then only you can make the changes. Okay, so that's what I said. So now we have created the workflow and we have defined the actions also. Now it's time for us to check whether our workflow is working or not. So how to check? On which object we have done employee leave object. So here we have to go and create one new record satisfying this condition so that we can go and check whether the actions are happening or not. So let's go to this object, create one new record. So I'm creating a new record. So what is our condition? So he should be a permanent employee and the number of days should be greater than 2, right? So I'm giving it as 3. See the status here, I am giving it as none only. Okay. So soon after I click on save, see what happens. Okay. So now where can you go and check your task? If you see on your home page, see here there is, if you click on home page in your org also, it will show my task. Okay, here you can go and check your task. Okay, so field update, I'm giving it as none. So I'm going to try to create a new record. Once I click on save, see what happens. Automatically the status, see, it is getting changed, right? So what we have defined it here, the field update, the status field needs to be changed. So automatically, if it is number of days is greater than 2 and if it is the type is permanent, automatically the status field is getting changed, because before saving we gave it as none only, right? But now see here, it is getting changed to workflow activated. So the field update has done. Next, let's go and see whether we have done my tasks. So my task, go and click on view more. As I have number of tasks, it will show like this. So let's search. See here, it is showing, right? New employee onboarding task. So this was the task which we created. Do you remember? The status was in progress. Priority was high. So assigned it to Ganesh. I assigned it to myself, right? So this was the subject which I gave. See here. This was the comment which we gave, right? Please carry on the admin activities for the task for the HR team. So it has been assigned to me. And see here, the reminder, the due date would be tomorrow. We gave the rule trigger date plus one date, we gave due date, right? So now it has calculated. So today is 28. So it has calculated for one day and it is showing us tomorrow. So a task has been created and it has been assigned to me automatically. Look at the time. It is actually IST, my time, it is actually showing. So just now it has happened. So we created a record now, right? So automatically field update has done and a task has been created and assigned to me. Okay. Next, if you see, after this, we have to check what is the third action, email alert, right? Whether we have received one email alert or not. For that, we'll have to go and check the Gmail. Let me once share my other screen. See here, I have received one email from Ganesh. Yes, this is actually my email which I have defined it in my R, and this is the email which I have specified so that it has come to me. Usually it would be like your company or from your company name to the emails which you specify in the login page. See here, hi Dilanta, welcome to. So this was the text email template which we have created. Do you remember? So system has taken runtime. I have given the name as Dilanta, right? So system has taken that, and after that, the system has provided with the sent out an email. Look at the time. It is like 2 minutes ago. That is when we created a new record, right? So automatically we have received one email also. So all the actions which we have specified in the workflow, it has happened. Correct? So this is how you define a workflow. So our workflow is working perfectly as intended for this particular record which we have created. The field has updated, a task has been created and assigned to me, and one email has been sent. So these are the three actions which we specified here, and it is working perfectly. Immediate workflow. So soon after the condition satisfies, the actions are getting triggered. So this is what is called as immediate workflows. Okay. Next, if we see, let's deactivate it and let's make some changes for the. Say here, let's do time dependent workflow actions. In real time, if you see, usually immediate workflow will be separate, time dependent workflow actions will be separate. Okay. So now for our example, I am showing like what is the difference that we have. If you see, click on add time trigger. So now see here, it will show 1 hour or 1 day, 1 hour after rule trigger date. Click on save. So this is the time you are going to specify. So after this, see here again it will show the same actions which we have done in email. In immediate we have specified, right? The same way you will have to define in the time based also. So once you do this and activate it, after now soon after the condition is satisfied, automatically the actions got triggered, right? Now in this case, after once the condition needs to be satisfied, after that, after 1 hour only, you will get an email, a task will be created and field update will happen, not immediately. Okay, this is the only difference between your immediate and time dependent workflow. Okay, so this is about your workflows actually. Next, if you see approval, yeah,
Ganesh, I have. So I can create a new remind email, right, for employer onboarding task. If it's not completed by, like, let us say 1 week, send a reminder, right?
yeah,
I can.
you can do this here. Create follow-up task is there, right? Automatically see here reminder has been enabled. So you can edit that and you
How do
can,
you create the follow-up task?
sorry,
How do you create the follow-up task?
so this would be the,
How do you create the follow-up task?
that's what, right? See here.
Mhm.
So automatically when you create a task, the reminder has been enabled. Okay. So tomorrow morning, once I log into the org, one pop-up will come here to remind like I have a task to be completed today. That's there. After this, if you want to create a follow-up task, click on this button. So it will
Okay.
take you to this task. So once you save it here, you can assign it to some other person. For example, if I'm not completing it, you can create a follow-up task to some other user. So I could give it as Rajesh. So he is my second user, right? So if you remove this name and search for the things, it will display all the available users in my ARM. So I can create one follow-up task for Rajesh and asking for the due date, like to be completed by 30th for him. This would be a follow-up task for Rajesh.
So can you send a reminder email?
Reminder email will not be sent. A reminder pop-up will come. This is the option which Salesforce has given. So if once you enable this, automatically the time in which where it has specified, one pop-up will come and it will remind. So reminder email, it is not possible for the task. It is not possible. From workflows you can send an email notification. From approval
Okay.
process you can send an email notification. But inside this task, actually this is a standard object, correct? So for this standard object, there is no option of having sending triggering an email from the standard object. It is not possible.
Okay.
Okay.
What is the follow-up event?
The same, the task only. Actually, the event is also like as task is a standard object. The same way, event is also one standard object in Salesforce. If we go and search for event, that is also again one standard object. Activities is there. That is another standard object. Tasks, events, activities are there. So task is like small tasks, you can have it. So follow up event in the sense based on this task, if you wish to have any event, there is a difference between your task and event, right? So event in the sense like if it is a bigger activity than your task. So if it is a big event is going to happen based on this, the employee is going to participate in one trade show event based on this. If he is going to onboard your employee before September, he can participate in the Dreamforce event. So you can create a follow-up event. Once if this task is
Okay.
not getting created, you can create an event wherein which this could be happening like that. So if it is a bigger task than your task, then it is actually one event. Again, tasks, events, activities, all those are standard objects. Okay. So this is how you create one workflows and the workflow actions here. So next if we see it is approval process. So click on setup. On the left, click on approval process. Under workflow rules, you will have approval process. Click on that, it will take you to this object. Sorry, this page. This is actually your approval process wizard page. Here you will have to specify on which object you are going to specify. It is actually employee leave. Okay. So now already I have one active. I will let me deactivate it. Now click on create new approval process. See here, jumpstart standard setup. You will have two approval process. Click on jumpstart. Let's first see the jumpstart way. So what is jumpstart, which we have seen? Uh, it is like one-step process. It is a one-step way where in which you can define the complete approval process. I said, right? See here, there is only one step. Okay. So first you will have to define the name for your approval process. Next, leave this no problem. By default, this should be disabled. No need enabling it because we would have explained in hierarchy field, right? Hierarchy relationship, we would have seen if you are defining whatever name over there, it will automatically select that old owner name it will take. Okay. Here, email template, if you wish to have any email template like your email has been triggered, then you can, if you wish to have such, then you can have an email template here, but it is not mandatory. So if it is not mandatory, then no problem. Even if you wish to have, then you can have an email template like we did it for in workflows we did, right? So like that you can have an email template. Then enable this so that all approval process after once the record is submitted for approval, the related list will get displayed. Okay, as page layout in all the page layouts. I hope you are aware of related list. What is a related list, right? So on all approval process records, this related list will get added. So next, you will have to specify criteria. As in workflow, you can define whether one condition, or you can also give the formula. Okay, so now I am going to give it as a condition only. So here, what would be my condition if you see, if number of days is greater than 4 actually. If some employee is going to apply for more than 4 days of leave, then he needs to get his supervisor's approval. So that would be our condition. So let's keep this condition as simple. So next, if you see, this is where we will have to select the approver. So who is the approver? Let the submitter choose the approver manually. If you say, then in runtime, once he or she submits the record for approval, after that he can choose who is her approver. Okay, in runtime you are giving the option for the user to select the approvers, but in real time this would not be the case in most of the scenarios. Okay, so next option would be automatically assign an approver using a standard or custom hierarchy field. We have defined the hierarchy relationships, right? When I was explaining that, I would have told that in the automated actions and approval process, the hierarchy relationship would be useful. So whomsoever has been given as manager in the hierarchy field, those people, they can specify it. So here, see here, manager, team lead. These two are the hierarchy. If you specify manager and select this option, automatically whomsoever has been assigned as manager for you, they would be taken as approver by default. Okay, this is that option. Next is, you see, automatically assigned to queue. So what is a queue? Last week did we saw about public group queue, those things. Dilanda, have we already saw about queues and public groups, or have I explained about it, or I am to explain queues and all, queue concept, public group, queues.
What is that, Anish?
Queues, public group. Have I explained it earlier, or
No, no, no.
no? Right. Okay. So let's see about what is a queue and a public group. So on the left side, if you just click on queue, it will take you under administer manage users. You will have queues. It will take you to this object. So you can click on new. So just give a name for it, and what is the available object you want to have. I'm doing it as employee leave, and for all the users I wish to have, I can have it and I can save it. So this is how you create a queue actually. So we have created a queue, Delanta queue, and this is for employee leave object, and I have added two users, Ganesh and Rajesh. Next, I can, if I wish to create one group, I can create public groups. Click on public groups, click on new public groups, and here I can have, so here I can have users. So both your public groups and your queues, if you see here, it is actually adding a group of users in one group. Last week itself I would have said, right? So public group queue, if you see, it is like adding, giving a name and adding users in that. And if you specify that name here, all the users which you have specified in the group or in the queue, they would come into picture. Okay. Then if that is going to be the case, why separate queue and public group? What is the difference between these two? If you see, public group, if you add users in the public group, uh, you are just sharing the record. For example, in Dilanda public group, I have added Ganesh and Rajesh, right? So with Ganesh and Rajesh, if I specify this public group, then I can only share the record. Still, I am the owner. There is a difference between sharing and being an owner. Okay. So if I include the public group in my sharing rule, then I am just sharing my record. Still, I am the owner. But in the case of queue, if I am including those two users in the queue and then specifying that queue name, then actually they become owners. Actually, I am transferring the ownership also. So whomsoever is present, Ganesh and Rajesh, now actually are owners for this particular object and whatever. So they can actually take the ownership and they can transfer the ownership to some other person and they can do all the activities. So that is the difference between your public group and queue. In public group, you can only share, but in queue, actually, you can transfer the ownership itself, and the persons you are specifying inside that queue are actually owners of the record. Okay, where would it in real time? Where would these two would be useful? In sharing rules, you will go for public group actually. Okay, in queues and all will be applicable for your approval process. Like see here queues. So if I specify now this queue here, then both users, Ganesh and Rajesh, anybody can see it and approve or reject. So both become owners of the record. Only if someone is becoming owner, they will have all facilities to make changes, to do the changes in the particular record, right? So in one more real-time scenario where queue fits in, if you see, let's take support representative people or sales team is there, sales support team is there, where sales lead details are getting routed from different regions. For EMEA, there is one sales team. For APAC, there is one sales team. For US, you have one sales team. Okay. Whenever a sales uh, related record is getting generated, automatically the record will get routed to that particular team. So in that one every team there will have a group of users. So if you create a queue and assign that queue to that actual group, then whomsoever is coming in whatever shift they are, all people in that particular group, they can assign, they can take the record and they can start working on that. Or else let's take support perspective. Like we have different teams for different regions. For EMEA, for Asia Pacific, for US, we have separate different teams, and the tickets will be issues will be coming from all regions. So based on the region, automatically it is getting routed to each team. Okay, so all the members in that particular team are responsible for whatever shift they are coming in. They are responsible. They can take the ticket and they can do the start working on the issues. Also, they can transfer the things to other people. So this is the advantage of queue. Instead of queue, if you have provided as public group, then these people they cannot do anything. All that they can do is they can only see, they can view the record only. Other than that, they cannot do anything. So that is the difference between your queue and public group. So in the case of approval process, they have given here it as queue, right? So this is how you will create a queue. After creating a queue, you can specify a queue here. So once you do this, whomsoever you have defined it as names you have defined inside the queue, those people would be available and they can approve or reject the record. Okay. Fourth, if you see, automatically assigned to approvers. So even this is where I said like a serial level of approving, parallel level of approving. I said right. You can specify any number of users. I can add any number of users. I can give Rajesh. Okay, now you see here approve or reject based on first response. This is actually parallel level of approving. So either Ganesh or Rajesh, whomsoever is seeing it, they can approve or reject. Okay, so that is actually approve or reject based on first response. If you give second one, require anonymous approval from all approvers. If you see, this is actually parallel level of approving. So both Ganesh and Rajesh has to approve or reject. So if Ganesh approves and Rajesh approves, the record will get approved. If anyone is get reject, the record will get rejected. Okay, this is actually parallel level of approving. This is serial level of approving. Sorry, this is parallel. This is serial level of approving. So for now, let's make it as Ganesh itself so that I can approve and show what things are happening. Okay. So see here in one single step itself, we have defined the complete approval process. So this is actually your jumpstart approval process. Click on save. Once you click on this, JavaScript alert will come where in which it will show like you cannot, your approval process will not come into effect until you activate it. So just click on OK. So this is actually a small example which they would have shown when you are doing, have a look on this. Click on view. This is actually your approval process detail page. We had a workflow detail page, right? See here, this is workflow detail page. The same way, this is actually approval process detail page. What is the process name and which object we have used for all the submitters and what is the entry criteria. After this, come down, see here, initial submission action, approval steps, final approval, final rejection, recall action. All 5 approval action steps are showing it here, right? Inside each one, you will have task, email alert, field update, task, email alert, field update, task, email alert, field update. So before activating, still I am yet to activate it. Before activating, there is one option to include. Now I have included only Ganesh as approver, right? So I can add Rajesh as another approver now. Here I can add it. Okay, do you understand? So like this, before activating the approval process, I can add any number of approvers. Once activated, this button will get disabled. Okay, so that after that you cannot add any new approvers after that in both Jumpstart and Standard Setup Wizard. Okay, so this is the approval process detail page. In initial submission actions, you will have 4 actions, the same workflow actions what we did. So see here, automatically the record will get logged. Once the record has been submitted for approval, automatically log the record. So this is a standard action, you cannot change it. Okay, after it is approved or rejected, you can make the record, you can lock the record or you can unlock the record. So that is your wish, you can do it. Salesforce would have given that edit option, but here if you see, they would have, it is not available. Okay. Now for this purpose, let me do email alert and field update alone, because the task is same, right? What we did it for your uh, this thing, workflows the same way. So I'll do email alert, field update. So initial submission actions, click on field update. So which field I'm going to update? If you see status, so what is the field if you see submitted for approval? So initial submission, this will be my action. So next if you see, I'll have to click on email alert. So for this, before starting the approval process, you please have a few templates ready for the initial submission, for approving, for rejection. If you see, I have see here, I will have a few emails already I have created and kept for template kind of stuff. Leave approved, leave submitted for approval. Like this, before you start with the approval process, please have few email templates ready, at least 5 email templates. Okay, one for initial submission, approval, rejection, recall, and one for new email templates. So I have for initial submission, initially the record will be locked, which is a standard activity. After that, one email alert and field update will be happening. Next, Ganesh is the approver, which I have defined it here. Once the record is approved, what are all the actions that needs to be done? Okay, for final approval also, I have made email alert and field update. So the same way for rejection and for recall. Okay, the same way for your recall actions. Okay, so we have defined the complete approval process, entry criteria, conditions, all the custom actions which we are going to do, and who is the approver we have said. Okay, finally we have to activate it. Before that, we have to enable this option. allow submitters to recall approval requests. It is not checked now, right? So this has to be checked. Then only the users can recall. Here we have defined the recall actions, right? So the end users can recall only if this checkbox is enabled. So how can that be done? Under edit, go to initial submitters. It will take you to this option. Here you will have the option of allow submitters to recall the approved requests. Click on save. Okay. Now see here, now this thing will be enabled. So we are all set with the approval process. Now click on activate it. Once you activate, see here that new approvers option will disable. Okay, after this you cannot add or approve. So now we have created the approval process. Now we have to check whether it is working or not. So go to employee leave, click on new record. So I'm creating one text record called employee leave name. Okay. So what is the condition that I have should give? I should give more than 4, right? So I'm giving, you are going to apply for 5 days of leave. Click on save. See here, submit for approval button will come automatically. Okay. So see here, number of days we have given it as 5. Okay. So now after this, what we should do, and we have to click on submit for approval. Once we click on submit for approval, what should happen? Automatically the record should get logged. One email alert should go and the field update should happen. Now see here, the field status is showing it as none, right? Correct. So now click on submit for approval. See what happens to the status field. See here, automatically the status changed to submitted for approval. The record is locked. Can you see it? So since I am the system admin, it is giving the option of unlocking. If it is any other user, it will not show this option itself. The record will be locked, that's all. You cannot do anything. Okay. So the record is locked, automatically field update has happened and one email would have been triggered. So what is the email? Let's go and check in the see here, this is the email template which we have selected there. So one email alert has come, status has changed, record has been logged, email alert has triggered, status has changed. Okay. Now if you go and see in the home page, come down, see here in Ganesh home page under tasks, there will be one section called items to approve. There it will show the record which now we have submitted. This record which we have submitted now for approval, that record it will be showing. So here it is, see here, pending for approval. It is waiting whether to approve or reject. So it is being assigned to Ganesh. Okay. Now if you go and see the home page, it will show here. Okay. Now go to the particular record and now Ganesh can approve or reject. So let's see what happens if he approves the request. So what is the thing which we will need to do? So now the record has been submitted for approval. Initial submission actions has been triggered. The record has been assigned to Ganesh. Correct. So till this step we have seen. The record has been assigned to Ganesh. Correct. So now Ganesh, if he approves or rejects, what happened? That will be the remaining steps which we have defined it here, right? So first let's see what things will happen if it is getting approved. So now see here, before approving, if you refresh the leave request and see, the status is still submitted for approval. Okay. Once the request is approved, see how it is changing. The status is automatically changing to approved. Here it will get changed to approved. Here also the status will get approved. Now if you come and see in the home page, that record will not be there. Okay. We have Ganesh has approved it, right? So now if you go and see in the email, one email would have been triggered. Okay. Field update has done. field update has happened, email alert has been triggered, and the record is still locked. If you wish to have, you can remove the unlock also, but that depends on business requirement. Once the sense behind this is, once the record is approved, your leave is approved, right? So who will change again after that? If it is rejected, at least you can they can unlock it so that you can change and resubmit it again. But if the leave is approved, that's all done, right? So that for that only they have made it as lock the record here itself. But if you can, based on business requirement, you can unlock also, no problem. If you just click on edit, you can unlock the record also. Salesforce has given that option. But for initial submission, there is no such option. Okay. So your approval process, final approval action is working correctly. Next, we will have to check whether your rejection and for recall we have to do right. For that we need to create two more. Okay, it is now submitted for approval. Now in the home page, if you see the record which we created will be shown. Now Ganesh is going to get rejected. Automatically the status changed to rejected. Here it is rejected. Okay, the status has been changed. Now after this, if you go and check in the email, see here automatically your leave is rejected. So an email alert has come. Okay. So email alert has come, field update has happened, and the record, if you see, you could have got unlocked. See here, the record is unlocked because that is what is specified here. So your final rejection is also working perfectly. Okay. Next is your recall. For that, again, we'll have to create one new record. So I'm giving the condition number 7. So click on submit for approval. So now once it is done, see here, it is pending for approval, right? So in the home page, if you go and see, now it will show this particular record. So now Ganesh is yet to approve or reject. Before that, the end user is feeling like to change something. So what he can do is, he is now before he recalls, Ganesh is able to see it because it is pending for his approval. So before he approves or rejects, the user wishes to change something. So now he is recalling the approval request and he is making the changes. Recall approval request. See the status? Status is recalled. Here it is recalled. Now in the home page, if you refresh and see, now Ganesh will not be able to see that record because the user has recalled it. Correct? Now if you go and check your email, an email would have been received. Okay? So field update has happened, record will be unlocked, field update email that has triggered. So now the user he can change the record. Now he can change it to 9, click on save, and now again he can click on submit for approval and the process will again start again. Now if you see submit for approval, now it is again pending. Now the Ganesh refreshes his pages and see in his home page, now again it will show. Okay, after this he can again approve or reject. So now if you see here, first user has recalled it, after again he has submitted it back again, the changes with changes, and finally it has been approved. Okay, did you get the point? So this is actually your recalling action. So your recall action is also working perfectly. So this is how you will define an approval process in Jumpstart with all the actions with the approvers and how to check that. So this is actually doing it in the Jumpstart wizard process. So if you look at standard wizard, go to there, click on standard setup wizard. See here, it will show step 1 of 6. But in Jumpstart, have you noticed? In Jumpstart, it was one single step, correct? So, but here in standard setup, if you see, it is 6 steps. So that this is the only difference. So let's see, define all the steps. to click on next, you will have to specify the condition. So here I am giving the number of days to be greater than 7. So just for one difference, click on next. So see, look at the third step. Here you can have the same, that approval email field, right? So whether do you want the custom hierarchy, that approval process, who wishes to have this approval, that step. See this section, this will not be available in your standard setup, sorry, Jumpstart. So one administrators only can edit the records, or administrators or the currently assigned approver, your immediate supervisor who is going to approve or reject, he can also make the changes. Okay, whether he can make the changes or only administrators can make the changes. These two requests are there. Okay, so this section is not available in your Jumpstart. This is one extra section which Salesforce has given. So click on next. So based on business requirement, if you want to avail that option, you can select or unselect it. Next is the, if you wish to have the email template for the approval process, then you can have it. So as it is not mandatory, I am skipping this step. Here you will have to select who are all the approvers who are going to approve. So owner and the some person who is going to then apply for the leave. So those two people, they have given it here. Now if you see display history information in all related lists. Next, if you see security setting, this is what I was saying. So allow approvers to access the approval page. Recommended way is always the user should log into Salesforce application and then only they should do the approval process. Okay. Next, if you see allow approvers to access the approval page from any wireless enabled device, but this is not the recommended way. If you see it is having issues. So always the recommended way, if you see, to have the first step. Okay. Next, if you click on, it will ask who are all the submitters. So either owner or you can have a role group. Anybody can submit it like that. So click on this allow submitters to recall approval request so that users can recall the actions which I have said in the Jumpstart. Now go, when you are doing it, just click on yes. So now see here, this is the approval process which we have defined. This is actually standard setup. Okay, this is actually Jumpstart. So see, this is actually Jumpstart detail page. This is standard setup detail page. So see here also same. What is the approval process name? What is the condition? Who is the submitter? And after that again your initial submission action on your approval step. The same like how you defined it in your Jumpstart. The same way. Okay. For recall, final rejection, final approval, initial submission, for everything, the same like how you did it in Jumpstart, the same way only. There will not be any change. Other than in Jumpstart, you can define in one single step. In standard setup, you will have to do it in 6 steps. Okay, after that, the process remains the same. It works in the same way. There is no other change. Okay, so I have shown the difference of where it is actually the process is getting deferred. So after this, I hope it should not be difficult for you to proceed further, creating again one task in a bit like workflows, like how I did it in Jumpstart. The same way only for your standard setup also the process is going to get continued. And once you activate it, this thing will go off. Okay. So this is about your approval process using Jumpstart and standard setup. I have explained for Jumpstart and also for standard setup. This actions alone is there, but it is the same way, so you can have a try on